My wife chose her ex over our honeymoon, so I got revenge. My wife left me stranded at the airport. Not just late, not just delayed, but completely abandoned. She chose to go help her ex-husband just moments before we were supposed to board a flight to our honeymoon. A 2-week trip to paradise that I had spent the better part of a year planning down to the last detail. She sent a text message, can you believe that? A text, to tell me that she was canceling on us, on our marriage, to run to his side. She really, truly thought I would just obediently turn around, cancel the entire trip, go home and wait for her to decide when our life could resume. Well, she was catastrophically wrong. The honeymoon wasn't cancelled. I just cancelled her. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of how a couple of seemingly innocent photos from a nightclub ignited a full-blown, multi-family war, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring the notification bell, because you are not going to want to miss a single detail of how this all ends. It had been exactly 1 month since we said, I do. 30 days. The whirlwind of the wedding was finally over, the last of the thank you cards were in the mail, and all that was left was the grand finale, the main event, our 2-week honeymoon in a tropical paradise. I'm talking overwater bungalows, crystal clear water, private dinners on the beach, the whole 9 yards. I'd spent months, literally months, planning it, obsessing over every single detail to make sure it was perfect. This was supposed to be our time. The real beginning of the rest of our lives together. Looking back on it now, with the crystal clear vision of hindsight, I can see the cracks were already spreading through the foundation of our marriage long before we were supposed to leave for the airport. My wife, let's call her Sarah for the sake of this story, is what you would call a classic workaholic. It's a personality trait I genuinely used to admire in her. That relentless drive, that ambition to climb the corporate ladder, it was part of what drew me to her. But in the months leading up to the wedding, it had spiraled out of control. She was chasing a massive promotion, and it had consumed her. She became so wrapped up in it that she'd actually, seriously, suggested postponing our wedding. Not joking. She sat me down and tried to explain how a delay of 6 months would look better for her career trajectory. I had to put my foot down, hard. I remember telling her, our life together has to be the priority sometimes. The company will survive without you for 2 weeks. I really thought she understood. I thought that conversation was a breakthrough. It wasn't. The morning of our flight was tense. The bags were packed and sitting by the door. The taxi was scheduled. And that's when she drops the bomb. She tells me she has a last-minute, emergency meeting with an important client and she can't drive with me to the airport. She insisted that I should go ahead, check us in, handle all 4 of our massive suitcases, and she'd grab an Uber and meet me there with plenty of time to spare. I was already beyond ticked off. It just felt fundamentally wrong. This is our honeymoon. We're supposed to be starting this adventure together. Couldn't one client meeting wait? Couldn't she, for once, put us first? But I bit my tongue. I swallowed the bitter taste of my annoyance and told myself it was just for a few hours. I didn't want to start our honeymoon with a fight. So, I went to the airport by myself, dragging what felt like a literal ton of luggage behind me, feeling less like a newlywed husband and more like a roadie for a rock star. I had no idea that was just the opening act for the real betrayal. So there I was, sitting at the gate, alone. I'd checked in, navigated security, and lugged our bags to the drop-off. Now, I was just watching the clock on the giant airport monitor tick down. 1 hour passed. Then 90 minutes. Then it was 2 full hours. Boarding was going to start in less than 45 minutes. I texted her, hey, where are you? Boarding soon. No reply. I waited 10 minutes, my legs starting to bounce with anxiety. I called her. Straight to voicemail. Not even a ring. My stomach clenched. This wasn't like her. Even with her obsession with work, ignoring calls right before an international flight was another level of strange. I could feel that heavy, sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, the one that tells you something is deeply wrong. Finally, with only 30 minutes until the gate was scheduled to close, my phone buzzed in my hand. I practically ripped it out of my pocket, expecting to hear her voice apologizing, telling me her Uber was stuck in traffic. But it wasn't a call. It was a text message. The message was short, brutally cold, and it felt like it detonated a bomb in my life. It read, and I will never forget these words, not going to make it. Emergency situation with Mark. I have to be with him. Mark. Her ex-husband. That's it. That was the whole message. No apology, no I'm so sorry, no real explanation beyond that. Just a simple, declarative statement, her ex-husband needed her, so our honeymoon, our marriage, our future, was off. I just stared at the phone, reading the text over, and over, and over again. My brain couldn't process it. It felt like a glitch in reality. An emergency? What kind of emergency requires you to ditch your new husband on the way to your honeymoon? And why didn't she have the basic human decency to call me and tell me herself? After she had already lied to me about a client meeting to get me to the airport alone, she cancels our entire trip over a text message, to go play nurse to the guy she was married to before me. The layers of disrespect were just staggering. For a solid minute, I was totally numb, just watching the other happy couples at the gate laughing and taking pictures. Then, that numbness curdled and turned into pure, white-hot rage. She thought she could just put me on a shelf. She thought I'd come home with my tail between my legs, and we'd just pick up where we left off whenever she was done dealing with her ex. She had absolutely no idea who she'd married. In that moment, sitting under the harsh, humming fluorescent lights of the airport terminal, something inside me just snapped. It was a clean break. All the patience I'd cultivated, all the understanding I had offered, all the hundreds of times I'd given her the benefit of the doubt about her priorities, it all just evaporated. I lost it. But it wasn't a loud, screaming, dramatic kind of rage. It was quiet, and it was ice cold. It was a moment of absolute, terrifying clarity. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. She had made her choice, clear as day. Now, I was going to make mine. I stood up, turned my back on our gate where they were now announcing the final boarding call, and walked away. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call her. I didn't text her back. I opened a flight app. My brother lived a few states away, in a city I'd always wanted to visit. I knew he was the one person who wouldn't smother me with questions or judgment. He'd just get it. I found a flight leaving in less than an hour, to a completely different city, in a completely different direction. I booked it, paid for it with our joint credit card, and didn't hesitate for a single second. The honeymoon wasn't over, I was just changing the destination and the company. As I started walking toward my new gate, in a different terminal, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Her texts started rolling in. First, a simple, "Did you get my text?" Then, as the silence from my end stretched on, they became more frantic. "I'm so sorry, I'll explain everything later. Please don't be mad, this is a real emergency. We can rebook the trip, I promise I'll make it up to you." For 3 straight days, I didn't answer a single call or text. I just let them pile up, a growing digital monument to her catastrophic decision. I wanted her to feel that suffocating silence. I wanted her to sit in a pool of panic and wonder where I was, what I was doing, and what I was thinking. I wanted her to understand, for the first time in our relationship, that actions have consequences, and she had just kicked off a chain reaction that she was in no way prepared for. Landing at my brother's place felt like taking the first deep breath after being held underwater for too long. He opened the door, took one look at my face and the single carry-on bag in my hand, and just said, "Her loss, man. First beers on me." He was my only ally in this whole mess, the only person I'd told the full story to, and he was 100% on my side. There were no "are you sure?" or "maybe you should hear her out" questions. Just solid, unwavering support. For the first few days, I completely ghosted her. My phone was a constant, buzzing stream of notifications. "I'm so sorry. Please just talk to me. Where are you? I'm getting worried." It was a symphony of manufactured concern that I had no interest in listening to. Then, on day 3, she finally sent the long, rambling text message that was supposed to explain everything. Her ex, Mark, had tripped over his own feet in his apartment and twisted his ankle. That was it. That was the emergency situation. A twisted ankle. He couldn't call a friend? A neighbor? An Uber to go to urgent care? Literally any other human being on the planet? Nope. At 30-something years old, he called his ex-wife, who he knew was on her way to her honeymoon, and she came running, leaving her new husband and her marriage to die at the airport. Reading that text didn't make me feel better. It just cemented my anger into something cold and hard. He knew exactly what he was doing, creating a loyalty test. He called my wife. And she chose to answer. That night, my brother insisted we go out. He said I was moping around long enough and needed to blow off some steam. We went to a loud, crowded club downtown, the kind of place I hadn't been to in years. We had a few too many drinks, got lost in the music, and for the first time in a week, I actually felt myself relax. And that's when the idea hit me. It was petty. It was absolutely immature. And it was exactly what she deserved. I pulled out my phone and started snapping pictures. Me, with a huge, genuine smile on my face, a drink in my hand. Me, surrounded by a group of random people, all of us laughing. Me, on the dance floor, looking like I didn't have a single care in the world. My goal was simple, I wanted to make her feel 1/10 of the humiliation and abandonment she made me feel. I scrolled through the photos and picked the 2 best shots, the ones where I looked the happiest, the most carefree, the most unavailable. I opened up my message thread with her, the one with dozens of her unread messages, and I sent them. No text. No context. No explanation. Just the 2 pictures. Then I put my phone on silent, slid it back into my pocket, and got back to the party. I honestly didn't think she would drag our families into it. I really didn't. I thought, at the very least, there was a baseline level of maturity there. I mean, she's the one who committed the ultimate act of betrayal, but I didn't go running to her parents to tattle on her. But I was wrong. So wrong. The pictures didn't just make her feel bad, they sent her into a full-blown, tactical panic. She immediately forwarded the photos to her parents, to my parents, and apparently to our siblings, along with her own carefully crafted narrative. She painted this heartbreaking picture of me as some insensitive, cruel monster, out partying and living it up while she was at home, bravely dealing with a serious medical issue. The fallout was instantaneous. My phone absolutely exploded. It was a synchronized, digital assault. Texts and calls from my parents, my sister, her brother, everyone was furious with me. They saw the pictures and her story, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. They called me childish, petty, and unbelievably cruel. My own mother, who I thought would have my back no matter what, told me I was embarrassing the family. Sarah's dad left me a 2-minute voicemail screaming that I needed to grow up, get on the next flight home, and beg for my wife's forgiveness. They didn't have the context. They just saw the pictures she wanted them to see. They saw a husband having fun while his poor, sweet wife was being a good person and helping someone in need. It was infuriating. I felt like I was going crazy. Thankfully, my brother, my hero in all this, got on the phone with our parents and laid out the entire backstory for them, the work obsession, the almost cancelled wedding, the lie about the client meeting, the disrespect of leaving me stranded, and the grand finale, the emergency being nothing more than a sprained ankle. Slowly but surely, my family started to come around. My dad called me back and apologized. They admitted I had a point. Her family, however, just doubled down. To them, I was the villain, no matter the circumstances. Sarah was their perfect, blameless victim. A full-scale family war had officially been declared, all because of 2 pictures from a nightclub. After I sent those pictures, Sarah stopped trying to contact me directly. The desperate, begging texts were replaced by a barrage of angry, accusatory messages from her parents and her brother demanding that I apologize to her. It was absolutely unbelievable. I spent the rest of the week at my brother's, letting the storm rage. A week later, I flew back home to an empty, silent house. I hadn't even started unpacking my carry-on when she finally walked through the door. The confrontation I had been dreading and anticipating was immediate. She didn't apologize. Not at first. She tried to explain, her voice calm, as if she were talking to a child. She said she was just being a good friend to her ex, that he was in a vulnerable state, and that it would have been cruel to say no when he called her for help. She talked about it like ditching your husband on the way to your honeymoon for an ex's sprained ankle was the most normal, rational thing in the world. I just let her talk, my own anger hardening into something cold and heavy in my chest. When she was finished, I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. You made your choice, I said, and the sound of my own voice was ice cold. You stood at a fork in the road. On one side was our marriage, our honeymoon, me. On the other side was him. And you chose him. You chose him over us. You didn't even have the decency to call me. You let me find out via text. She started to protest, her composure finally cracking. It wasn't a choice. It was an emergency. A twisted ankle is an inconvenience, Sarah, not an emergency, I shot back. And even if it was, you have a new husband. Your loyalty is supposed to be here. You broke that. You shattered it. I gestured to my single bag still sitting by the door. I haven't unpacked because I'm not staying. That's when the true panic set in on her face. The reality of the situation finally hit her. She started crying, begging me to stay, promising it would never happen again, that she'd cut him out of her life completely. But it was far too late. The words were just noise. The trust wasn't just gone, it had been actively demolished. The respect I had for her was gone. I picked up my bag and headed for the door. I didn't look back. I drove to my parents' house that night and, for the second time, told them the entire story, from beginning to end. They looked at me, really looked at me, and saw how serious and broken I was. My dad put a hand on my shoulder and said that if I wanted to file for divorce, they'd help me find a lawyer tomorrow. It didn't even take me a second to say yes. The very first thing I did when I got to my parents' house was block her number. And then her parents' numbers. And her brother's. It felt like changing the locks on my old life. My new life had already started the moment I booked that flight to my brother's. I'm sure the family war will keep smoldering for a while. Her family will probably always see me as the bad guy, the petty husband who abandoned their perfect daughter in her time of need. But my family, and my real friends, they know the truth. They know this wasn't about some immature revenge plot. It was about having some shred of self-respect. She showed me exactly where I stood on her list of priorities, somewhere below her career and way below her ex-husband with a clumsy ankle. A marriage can't survive that. It can't be a partnership when one person is still tethered to their past. I didn't cancel my honeymoon, I just took the first, terrifying, necessary step into a new life, one where I'm the priority. She threw away our entire marriage for a guy with a twisted ankle. And I think, in the long, quiet nights to come, she's going to find out that was a very, very bad trade. So, let me ask you, what would you have done? Would you have turned around and waited at home? Or would you have booked your own flight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And also tell us where you are watching from and what time is it.